Hello and good time zone, everyone. Welcome to the flat plains of the northern Italian coast. Welcome, Misano. I'm Denak, providing the commentary here for this third round of the Simufur GT4 season here in the Misano motorpark circuit. Hopefully soon joined by my co-commentator classmate as he's rushing his way to get back home here, join me on the commentary box here to provide some exciting commentary for this upcoming race here. This is normally a motorbike circuit that we have here, but the SRO group also hosts GT4 and GT3 racing here, which is why we are currently doing our third round here on the Simufur track here, and it's going to be a very tricky one, because there seems to be quite a bit of a mix-up here on the top of our grid here, with the usual suspects that we would expect to be there at the top contention for the wins here actually are not doing as well as they maybe would have hoped for to do here. For instance, we have Azure Goat here, who has been quite vocal about his displeasure for how the McLaren does not work well for this really flat and twisty technical motorbike circuit. We've also had lots of commentary from Ute and Saber Kitsune as well, where they don't really enjoy this track as well there. So the normal top people we would see competing for the wins here on this overall category are actually not quite there. And as a surprise, we actually have the Ginetta G55 of Auras Volpes currently holding the fastest lap time here in the practice session, as we have 3 minutes left to go. It's going to be a very exciting race for sure here, and it's definitely going to be a race of attrition for the tires as well, because this one's going to be a killer. The track is very cold. It may be sunny outside, it may be cloudless skies, but this sun brings no warmth to these drivers. Currently at 17 degrees air temperature, 19 degrees track temperature, it's going to be a big challenge for our drivers to be able to get the heat in these tires here. It's going to cause more sliding, more scrubbing on the tires, causing more friction, more wear, which is going to be really lowering these times as we go over through the 45-minute race here. But before we wrap up our practice session here and get ready for qualifying, I want to do a quick recap of what our point standing is going to be so far into this third round of the GT4 season here. Starting off with our overall category, we have Azure Goat still able to hold a fairly sizable lead here in the top here, but as we've already seen from his commentary throughout the week here and into this practice session here, he's not quite as comfortable with that McLaren, so we might expect some positions to shuffle here. Perhaps Azure will still be able to hold his lead here, but that gap will be going down a bit more towards as the race wraps up here. But further down the grid here, we still have a very lively race happening between our Silver and AM drivers, because if we head on over to our Silver grid here, you can see we have Mute still able to hold on that lead here with a single point. But there's going to be Vossi right behind, and Vossi feels to be a bit more comfortable around this track here, as Newt has also been instructing to get the temperature down, the grip down, and the speed down on that squirrely McLaren here in the track here. We also have Auras Volpes in a really strong drive right now, currently again holding the strongest lap time here with a 2/10 gap here to the pro driver of Azure Goat here. So we might see some bit of a shuffling here at the top of the Silver standings here as we go on here. And over on in our AM rankings here, we also have a fairly tight fight here with Lub, Snowy, Z-Source at the top 3 here, all within 6-7 points of each other here, and with Lub not being able to attend this race here this weekend, it's going to be giving the door wide open for Snowy to maybe get a bit of extra points, or maybe even get into the lead of the AM Championship here in our GT4 season. But as a reminder, this season also has drop rounds implemented, which means it also means that one of the rounds, the worst round you have throughout this 6-race season, is going to be removed from your overall points here, and with only your 5 best results counting towards the finishing results here. So despite Lub not being able to attend this race tonight, he's still going to be very much in the contention for this race as we go on our final 30 seconds of this session here. And we're going to be very excited to see how it's going to be actually, as we see a big overstep moment here from MN_ going into the wall. Unfortunate. This is going to be one big risk going into this qualifying session here. There is a lot of grass on the outside of this track limits, and track limits are going to be very strict here, especially going towards the ladder sector here towards turn 15, turn 16. There's a big chance if you go a little bit too wide, you're going to be clipping your tires on the grass here, and that's going to be causing you to spin out here. So we're going to be watching that with a very close eye as we are now finally wrapping up our practice session here and looking to see who is going to be leading our standings here. It seems to still be Auras Volpes able to hold on to that fastest lap time here with a 1:42.6. track is already in an optimum configuration here. It's a bit colder than what we saw in the earlier practice sessions before the race server went live here. We might see a slightly faster time, so I know for a fact that Auras was able to get almost into a 41 lap time here in the earlier practice session, so we're going to be probably seeing these times go down very, very far as we get to the final few runners here on our practice lap here. With, I do believe we still have the car of that is car of Lunatic here still on a lap here, getting these final cars. We also have a couple more cars, the 777 of F Spirit, F23 of Saber Kitsune, the 59 of Czar, and the 404 of Cohen still on some laps here, but we're going to be getting ready for our qualifying session here soon. Still, while we are waiting for this here, I just want to be saying I am very excited. It's going to be a very fun race. The previous time Misano actually was featured in our Simufur account, that was all the way back in the AM Championship. It was also a very much wet race back then, but this time it's going to be maybe not as warm, a bit about at the same temperatures, but it's going to be much drier this time here. So we're going to be looking forward to see how our drivers are going to be able to get here. And we're also going to be having a split qualifying here, which means it's going first off going to be the national MM drivers for the first 50 minutes, followed up by the silver and pro drivers in the latter 50 minutes here. So we're probably going to be seeing the silver and pro drivers being able to get the fastest lap times around here, as we are now currently underway on our qualifying session here. So let's move on back over to the main screen, as we do see that it's going to be the car 911 of 1B who is able to get first here on the track here, who's now going to be taking us through our first laps around here on the Misano circuit. It's going to be certainly quite a bit of a challenge for our drivers to get their tires warmed up into the optimum window here, with how cold the track is and how tricky the track is as well to get them into the right window here. So we might see them need them to do like one lap, to even 2 or 3 out laps to get their tires in their proper window to get those optimum lap times out. But there's also going to be the other issue as well, where this track is a very much hell on our drivers' tires here. From my own testing and from the commentary I've been able to hear from our other drivers here at Simufur, we hear the tires are only good for bare 2, 3, 4, 5 laps, somewhere in that range, and then they start severely dropping off in performance here. So we might see these drivers really pushing it hard on those first couple laps here, get the absolute maximum of their cars that they can here before they just pull back over the pits, get a fresh pair of boots in, and get ready for some new runs here. We see UNV really aggressively weaving on this back straight here towards turn 11, 12, and 13, as they really try to get the optimum temperature on these tires. So we're going to be pushing a look at this, going up into the final couple corners. We can now get ready for our first few runs around Misano. We also see all of our ambars are currently on the track here. So let's hop on over to our onboard view here as we see our 1V getting ready for their first lap. As we go over the main straight here, a really short straight as they get all the way to the left side here, going up into turn 1, getting mounting that curve nice and deep, late on the brakes here, missing that curve quite deeply as well for their next second braking zone in turn 2, cutting that curve deep as well here. Another deep corner cut here going up into turn 3, and keep that whole pin all the way down, drifting wide in another braking zone into turn 4, 5, and 6. Really important to get that nice flow going. Keep your front pin all throughout here, but that may be a slight bit of left here as they try to get that straight exit into turn 6. A bit wide there, but still on about left here, going up into this middle sector here. The very, very light turn 7 here was the light hairpin of turn 8. Again, now to the curve here. Cuts on that curving again here, minimizing that wheel spinning, trying to get a good exit here, not going too wide on the exit here, keeping it nice and well together here so far. Up into your 9 turn, the really tricky hairpin corner here, towards the right here, really a bit wide there on the exit, going to be compromising their exit suit quite a lot as we go towards the back straight here. Going to be just unleashing all of the horsepower on that Porsche here with a bit of weaving again here. It seems like one thing that already keep on getting their lap here, still trying to get their tire into their optimum window here on this lap here. Going up into turn 12 and 13, another weaving right-hander trying to brake as late as possible, have a bit of power here. Going up into turn 14, tight hairpin, even the pros on the hairpin a bit too wide, taking the right up on the curving here, swinging around wide to turn 15, get cut back in deep, just a little bit of the curving here with that final braking zone into turn 16, and another deep cut on this curving here. just a little bit that unfortunately invalidated the lap time of 1B, so that's not going to be a valid lap time here, but that was going to be I believe a 45 something here on that lap. Unfortunate that they were not able to get that lap time here, but we're going to be probably seeing if they're going to be able to improve on this on the next turn here. Now, we do see, actually, there's still not a single... Actually, we do have the driver of 919 of Snow able to get the first lap time on the board here with a 44.5. A strong opening here from our second runner-up in our championship here. So pretty good stuff from him. We also see 1B again, not as good of an improvement as they had on the last round here, but hoping to maybe get back on a good climb here. The track limits are certainly going to be a very big challenge for all of our drivers here. They are not forgiving, especially up into the exit of turn 6, exit of turn 15 and 16 as well. All of those tracks, all those sections are really easy to go a tiny bit too wide over the curbing here and invalidate your lap time. And that's also going to be providing a big risk for our drivers to potentially even get some drive-through penalties as we go over the race here. I know this has been said many times here in our previous races here in Simufur, but this would be the one where we might see a couple more drive-throughs here as the drivers really push the cars to their limits here to try to get the absolute best pace out of them in the race here. We also see Snowy here on another 7/10 improvement as he goes down deep into the final couple corners here into a nice tight line into turn 14, just barely cutting that line here with a good exit. Bit of time lost there, but getting a nice and set up here for turn 15 and into 16. Really widely maximize that entry speed there. A bit too in early on that corner into turn 16, but with a still very impressive run here, that's going to be a 5.5 improvement, and that's going to be another time of 143.9, able to break into those 43 lap times here. We also are probably going to be expecting similar times from our silver drivers here, with the fastest ones hopefully able to get all the way up to into the 42s here. Or perhaps we might even see some 41s here from our absolute top of our pack here, but we're going to be watching with more interest as our future AM drivers here are still doing their runs. We have not been able to see a valid lap time from Jinfu or Wolfen Fox data, as I do correct myself. Jinfu was just able to get their first lap on the board with a 46.0. Quite a bit ways here from our top 3 and into the rest of our AM drivers here with a whopping 1 second between from first place to third place, and from third place up into fifth place is going to be another second from there. So there's quite a bit of variance in the pace here. We can definitely see not all of our drivers are quite as comfortable around the track here in Misano, so we're going to be hoping to see some further improvement from them, and maybe they'll be able to get some better runs here as the race goes underway. We are seeing now all of our AM drivers have been able to get a lap on the board here. We now see Korea seem to be struggling a bit more with the car as they had last time here. This Maserati with no taste, traction control or anti-lock braking system is going to be probably languishing a bit more in these really technical and tight corners of Misano here. So I know the other Maserati that we have here of F-Spirit has been able to get some pretty respectable times here, but it seems like Cohen is not quite able to replicate those same times with the notoriously hard to drive Maserati here, but hopefully they'll be able to get some more improvements here. We also see Wolfen Foxted on another big improvement here, another 8/10 going up into the middle sector here, up with unleashing all of those horsepower on that beautiful big American muscle car of Camaro here, going up into 11, 12, and 13, all in a big fast section here. Trying to map it on wide. They get that late braking, lunging it deep with a good cut into 12 into 13. The good setup here, a bit too wide into turn 14, but still a good lap time survival. Almost a second up on his previous best here. So we're going to be seeing a major improvement here from Wolfen Foxdale as we go into with a nice and tidy exit into 15 and finally into 16. It's going to be a bit of a time loss there on that final corner here, but still that's going to be a very respectable time. That's going to be a very big jump here. That's going to be putting him all the way up into P3 with a 44.775, only 6 hundredths of the current P2 time here of Zsource with a 144.707. So it's going to be quite interesting stuff here. We have another 6 minutes to go on our AM drivers here before it's going to be the time of our silver and pro drivers to get their lap here. And it's certainly going to be a very interesting one here with our top runner. So we're able to put a very commanding lead here so far. A whopping 7/10 ahead on the P2 driver here of Zizos here, but down from there, the fight from P2 to P3 is a much more closer one here. Only 2/10-ish separating the drivers here, with the another fight going on between Louis, driver of Jinfulf, and Cohen here, rounding out the AM grid here at 5th and 6th. You know, we're not seeing too many improvements. We also see Juan B on another slight improvement here. As I do say, they actually had a bit of an unoptimal exit here going up into turn 15 that unfortunately invalidated their lap time. That's not going to be that much of an improvement. We do see Cohen here actually going much faster currently 5/10 up on their Misano going up into the final corner here with a big lunge, keeping it nice and tidy here into the final exit in turn 16. But that's not going to be putting them up another position here, but that's going to be closing the gap more into Jinfulf up ahead here. So you might still have a chance to get a couple positions done here if you can get those get that very bright and pink Maserati here wrangled under control. Coming up, we actually see Snowy also in another improvement here. Again, just flying with that British green machinery of the Aston Martin here. Another 3/10 up on his previous best lap time. We have seen the track rise up a little bit in temperature. It's currently at 20 degrees Celsius, so that's hopefully going to be helping these drivers to get some better runs here and some better traction on these really slippery circuit here on this really flat track. It's especially going to be tricky going up into the turn 10 circuit here. I've been seeing many reports from many drivers where it's really easy for the car to go a bit oversteering, start sliding, and not get as good of an exit as you want here, and just it's going to be very crucial to get that good exit into turn, then to get yourself the best exit possible into this really long back straight here. Watching Snowy very closely, he's again going a very deep cut into 12 and 13. Another good run here, getting really well done braking on that turn 14 turn here with another half a tenth improvement here, currently almost 4/10 up on their previous best with a good cut into 15, good run into 16 with a not quite on the right side of the track here for turn 16. Could maybe see a bit more improvement here, but that's going to be another big improvement for Snowy here. Now it's going to be a 43.7, a whole second ahead from Zizos in P2 here. So we're seeing some strong performances from Snowy, who we have normally not seen being able to fight for the top positions in the AM Championship here. So well done from him. And if he is able to keep this kind of performance going here, we might actually see some some questions for Snowy 2 Pro, or perhaps even the Silver here. We have another couple of minutes left here on our AM and Nationals round here before it's going to be time for our Pro and Silver drivers to get on the track here. And looking up, we don't see many drivers here making any improvements at the moment. We have actually nobody here is currently on a major improvement right now, so it's going to be quite some tricky stuff here to get the final few laps around here. And as I do say that, we now have our co-commentator Plasma finally able to join us in the commentary box.
Yeah, just ignoring the AMs as usual, the bastard child of my commentary, it seems, always arriving a little bit too late for them. But of course, with 3 minutes to go, I'm not missing the important part. You know, when your kid scores a goal, you're still there. You're still can be proud of them. So we're here to watch them win the game. And I digress as we watch Snowy taking this 919 Aston Martin to possibly another Class AM pole position.
He's been on a really big improvement on his form from the previous couple races here. We haven't normally seen Snowy up in the top steps of AM class here. So if he's able to keep this kind of performance here, we might even see some miraculization of Snowy to Silver, or perhaps even Snowy to Pro.
Yeah, Snow Pro is ready and in full effect as we see that Aston Martin absolutely demolishing the inside curve to turn 1, tipping it into turn 2. The tricky little technical sector there. Really prone to launching a car wide coming through 1 and kind of messing up the entry of 2. So very well put together from our AM pole sitter to puck on through for the back straight of Misano. This left-hander deceptively tricky, but well put together by Snow. Corner that even in the GT3s can catch out quite a few drivers on the regular.
Yes, indeed. There's going to be a very big risk of track limit violations here on this track here. Perhaps even more so than in Imola or in Hungaroring, where we had our second and first rounds of the Simufur GT4 Championship here. But we have talked a lot about like potential drive-throughs disrupting the race order here, but we have actually not seen that much as the qualifying switches over to the race session here. So it seems like these drivers are finally wising up on their lessons of being able to scale back that tiny little bit to keep their car on the road here and not get those drive-through penalties.
Well, I reckon with the slower GT4 class cars as well, you have more time to react, and these GT4s rely a little bit more on that mid-corner grip, which actually suits Misano's circuit quite well, as we've also seen in like our M2 championship cars that really rely on the mid-corner grip, having not a lot of power, but a good bit of mid-corner, but still very, very heavy, so they have to make it up by balancing the car in the limit throughout the corner. Well, that's going to be the same type of driving style you're expecting to succeed here in the GT4 Championship as we take a look following the BMW M4, the bigger brother of the M2, rolling through the final corner here, piloted by Zizers in P6 as he's trying to make his final run down a main straight with just 15 seconds left as they cross the line to get one more lap for qualifying.
Yes, it do seem it's only going to be the cars of Juan B and Zizos currently on that lap here. We also see that's the car of Kuhn here also on a lap here, but I do see them going wide there, so that's going to be an invalid lap from them. So it's not going to be these two drivers. So we see Zizos actually on a fairly substantial improvement here, already 3/10 up on their previous best here, so that's probably not going to be enough for a challenge into the top step here, but you might see them able to close the gap a little bit on Strong as we see our Silver and Pro drivers finally rolling out on the grid here and getting ready to drive. It's also going to be probably not quite our expected pole sitter here last time. We've heard a lot of commentary from especially Azure of how his McLaren is not being able to suit quite well towards this Misano circuit here, so we might see a new pole sitter for this round here.
Absolutely, I expect it, to be honest. The McLaren is not really a car well suited to this track. Very, very strong mid-range power in the back end of that McLaren. So I expect it to be quite good coming out of the corners, but McLaren struggles quite a bit with mid-corner grip without unsettling the balance. And if you do get it to be faster, the mid-corner can become quite snippy and wanting to spin the rear end around. So I am very interested in seeing what qualifying might produce as Caesar is going a little bit wide there on their final lap and unfortunately invalidating while we take over to one of doing the Tokyo Drift in the Australia edition rolling through the final sector as we get ready to watch our first flying laps from our opponent's silver class. And of course, who else are they going to be led by no one else other than Azure Goat. Rolling through the final corners now. Hitting it in turn 16, very, very easy to get wrong and invalidate your second lap as well, but nice and conservative coming from the McLaren driver as we storm down to turn 1, up the gears 4th to 5th, and then very quickly back down to 4th, 3rd, into turn 1. Don't overshoot as you need to set up for 2, a more important exit, and drive the car out. And once again, can't drive it all the ways out because you need to get tipped in for 3, all the ways down into the hard braking zone of 4. Exceedingly late apex, very late as we see the McLaren tuck in very, very hard at the end of the corner. Into 5, not much of a corner in these cars. Into 6, those curbs easily able to unsettle the car and toss them wide. But we see the McLaren easily able to glide over those as we storm on down to turn 7. Not really a turn here, but hard braking zone of 8. And you just pull the nose in for what feels like an infinitely long corner. The exit never really coming to drive the car out, really trying to carry the power through, possibly sliding it out. And then the tricky braking zone of 9 and 10, turning the entire time, akin to turn 10 at Bahrain, just pulling the nose in later and later to get that car straight on the exit, as Azure seems to be able to do that quite well. Maybe a little bit of mid-corner speed loss, a little bit of understeer in there, and then through the triple right of 11, 12, not really any corner coming up here, but 13, hard braking, pull the nose in, on edge, on camber, don't drift out too wide because you have to brake hard for 14, immediately late apex, pull the car straight as early as possible, and as Astro does exactly that, he sets up for turn 15 all over the inside curb, little bit of lack of speed there, but it's going to be a good lap as we tip through the final corner as 16. Once again, don't drift too wide, taking all of the curb, and the first time for our pros is going to be slapped down as a 143.0, so already 7/10 clear of our top AM position.
Indeed, our pro and silver drivers are definitely going to be asked. We do say that it's not going to be the Ginetta of Aras Focus able to pip Azure go with a whopping 2 seconds up, 2 tenths up here with a 42.9 here, already breaking the 42 barrier here. And I wouldn't be surprised if we were able to see a 41 time even from our top runners here, with the Ginetta really well suited for this technical twisty motorcar circuit here.
Admittedly, the Ginetta would probably be one of my favorite cars for pole position here. So I really do look forward to what could come from that 406, being the sole Ginetta on the grid, remember, but Oraz has shown some astonishing pace this championship, and the GT4 is a car. They seem to really get underneath them. We've seen them struggle previously before, but I'd have to say the past couple races, at least on raw pace, Oraz really starting to find their stride. Very, very impressed with them, especially the last round and so far, the beginning of qualifying here.
Indeed, so far we already see them going on another 5/10 improvement here on their previous best lap time here. So we're also going to be seeing probably some good stuff here from Grimlit, who was now able to beat Auras Lopez with another 3/10 on their previous best lap time with a 42.590 already. So we're getting close to that 41 barrier here, and as we're getting over to the final 10 minutes of our qualifying session here, we do indeed may see that 41 barrier broken here, but it's going to be quite some tricky because there's going to be a very severe tire degradation on these cars here. So they may be able to get like 2-3 good laps out of these cars before they already have a severe drop off in their performance and need to pit in for some fresh boots.
It's quite possible. We see Oraz going very, very wide there. That might result in a next lap invalidation for the 406, but it looks like they're still heading on strong. So carrying on as we watch Vossi coming through. I believe this is turn 14 right now. Very, very late apex. No, turn 10. Excuse me. And back section of the track still. But the long run for this Porsche must feel infinitely long, honestly, as the Porsche is not known for its straight line speed anymore, but the number 15 still throwing it in to 11, 12, tuck it in for 13, and then hard on the brakes for 14. A little bit early on our turn in for the Porsche driver, but nonetheless need to get it set up on the right side of the track, taking plenty of liberty on the track limits, but kept inside. And then through the final corner, this corner, I expect the Porsche to be very, very strong and good in the mid-corner rotation, especially as you're needing to lean into that camber. It is going to be quite a strong time from Vossi. Going to be a 1 minute 2.8, so still 2/10 adrift of Grim Lilith up there in P1, but I think that might just be the momentum beginning to swing in the way of this Porsche.
Indeed, so we are seeing our silver and pro drivers quite mixed up in between them. It also really shows the difference of performance between all of these different GT4 cars here, where you see some cars being really strong in some circuits, where we saw the McLaren really dominating it in Misano, whereas we see now the Ginettas and the more agile Porsches and the Mercedes here being able to get a much stronger running here in Misano. So that's also the one point what makes GT4 cars really, really fun to watch and drive around. It's just the vast difference in performance between all the different cars here.
Well, don't count the McLaren out yet, because Azure just pipped Grim Lilith to P1 with a 142.550. Only 400s better than Grim, who is on quite the improvement coming through right now. Grim Lilith, I believe that is coming through to the final corner here. First two sectors was up by 2/10. Tucked into the final corner, a lot of curb on exit. Is that going to be a valid lap? I do believe so. And yes, it's going to be a valid lap to a 142.2. So once again, the goalpost is moved. And next target, Oraz Volpez, who through the first two sectors so far, actually, sorry, just the first sector alone, already up 0.4 of a second. So 406 tracking on for quite possibly a pole position lap with this improvement pace as we dive down into turn 10, turn 9, transitioning into 10, laid apex very early on power. Looks like a very well-balanced car using all of that exit curve is the 406. Absolutely looking determined to take this pole position to the front.
Indeed, we are seeing them currently on a 5/10 improvement here, so right up on the limit of being able to beat Grim Lilith on their personal best lap time here. We also see at the back of the grid here, we still see the 919 driver of Snowy, as we see Oras unfortunately going a bit too wide into that final corner in turn 13, validating the lap time. So quite unfortunate from him, but hopefully they'll be able to get another run here. But as I was saying, we have still our 919 AM driver of Snowy able to hold on a P9 position, with our drivers Lunatic, Dipping Sauce, and F-Spirit not being able to get the car as well behaved as they would have, and still holding on a very surprising top 10.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't imagine Snowy be anything other than ecstatic about that. But, of course, they still have drivers like Lunatic who are only 300s behind them, so not a time to celebrate yet. There's still some time to be found, and this track is forever improving. We did see, actually, during the start of this session for the Silver Pro drivers that it did transition over to Optimum as a big slide from S-Spirit, carrying that momentum through the Turn 8 complex hard into the 9-10 ride. This is where I expect the Maserati to struggle the most, turning and braking in a car with no ABS. It is a testament to the driver skill of F-Spirit trying to keep that car in line and carry that pace through. Misano is really going to challenge that Maserati in their ability to keep those tires rotating underneath them.
Indeed, we are watching them on a very impressive improvement of 4/10 already here, going up into the Final Cup corners in turn 13. It's a bit of a slide again, keeping that very Riley Maserati under control, but keeping it together here into turn 14 of wide X, trying to swing around, get yourself set up for turn 15. Cut that apex deep and just on the track limits here and able to get on a 5/10 improvement here, so that's gonna be quite a good run here going up on the final straight here, unleashing that Maserati barrier over the finish line. That's going to be quite an impressive improvement from here. That's only going to be up one position though only, despite that massive improvement.
One position, but through that final corner, they lost a little over half a tenth, and that could have put them in that P9 position right ahead of Snowy, as they're only 0.05 of a second off. But nonetheless, we have to transition over to Saber, who's currently up 0.2 through the first two sectors. And looking through the final sector here, this is where the KTM really strives and is very, very dominant. And it looks like a well put together final two corners from Saber. All they have to finish is this final apex, and yes, running all the ways out, so it's Saber able to promote themselves up into a higher position. It is an improvement on their lap, but not enough for a position to usurp Newt for that P7 position. Still missing the mark by just over a tenth, as Lunatic now looking to try to make an improvement across the line, and it looks like it will just narrowly have missed out on an improvement for the number 8. Orez once again looking for another big charge for that pole position. Already up 0.2 through the first sector. Still waiting to see if they can navigate the rest of the lap. We saw them going up by about 0.6, a little bit later than this part of the lap last time we were on them. And it could be a big improvement as the time looks like it is going to be gained into the braking zone. And that Janetta was a little bit on edge coming into 9-10. So Orez definitely leaving all of the time out on, or leaving none of the time out on track. They charge through 11, setting up for 12, the kink into 13, hard on the brakes, pull the nose in where we saw them go a little bit wide last time, keeping in the track limits, hard on the brakes, diving into 14, a late turn and using the agility of that Janetta and driving out of the corner with quite a bit of pace. The car looks well put together, taking quite a bit of curb into 15 and just 16 to go. Opened up all the ways on the curb, all of the apex curb, let it drift all the ways out early on power and straighten up that steering for the run to the line. It will be an improvement, and it will be a P2 right now for Orez as we jump into the final 3 minutes of qualifying. Most of these drivers probably looking at only about 2 laps to go, and I'd have to imagine that's about where Orez is going to be, but they're already looking fast for the second flying lap in a row.
Exactly, yeah. We also see there's only 300ths of a second between Orez and Azure Code currently here. So despite the McLaren not being quite well suited for this Misano circuit here, Azure is definitely putting that car through its pace here and just extracting every single inch performance from that Luna enthusiastic livery car here, and hoping to get that pole position here. And looking at our current point position here, they are still in a fairly decently here. Currently 8 points up on the P2 of Newt here, but if they're not able to keep this lead here, we might see the lead on him be able to shrink down a little bit into the future rounds.
Are we calling that enthusiasm? Is that what this is now? This is enthusiastic for you? I'm not quite sure I would use the same vernacular. But if whatever floats your boat, as we see Azure just trying to take a run out and really stretch the legs of that McLaren, but doesn't look like an improvement through their first two sectors, but an improvement through the first two sectors so far is Grim Lilith. 2/10 up through those first two sectors, just trying to piece together the final lap. Are we going to see a break into the 1 minute 41s through the final corner? Looks like the car might have had a little bit of a slide on exit, just losing a little bit of time, but it will be an improvement up to a 142.2. So that's going to put about a 10th and a half between Oraz and Azure trying to chase down that pole position, and they are going to see Newt trying to make a big improvement here, already up about a 10th and a half coming through that first sector. But we've seen this McLaren really struggle through that final sector, so while this is where they're going to be gaining that time, they really need to piece together that technical final sector. Very easy to lose the front end of this 272. But Newt trying to make a charge as we run out of turn 10, and already a massive improvement, 4/10 for the 272. So this could be the hot lap that Newt has been looking for all session. Through once again 11, run the car all the ways out, tip it into 12, and then hard on the brakes, pull the nose into 13. Nice and early on that apex, use all the curbing, dive late into 14, a little bit early into the corner for the McLaren, so a little bit understeer coming through. 15, use all that curb once again, and eating it is that McLaren driver as we set up for the final corner. Just need to piece it together one final time. A lot of curb on the apex there, could set up for a good run here if they're able to get that power down, and it is going to be at a big improvement to P5 so far, and only 400s again behind Vossi, and I do believe they just barely missed out on that final lap.
Indeed, we are actually seeing Vossi on another 3/10 improvement on their previous run here, as we see going them up into the back straight of Misano here through turn 7, going up really wide here into turn 8 with the other Porsche car of Russell up ahead here, who is currently not quite as strong runs here as we see from our fellow Tiggan Racing driver here of Porsche here, but we're going to be seeing not quite enough to challenge into the top 3 here. So there's actually quite a substantial gap from the top 3 into the rest of the field here, with the P2 and P3 times only 300,000 separating them, with from there on out it's on a whopping 4/10 into the next driver.
Yeah, 4/10. It is, I mean, quite the dominant gap, you have to say right now, but you have to imagine that even looking at the top end of our field, maybe a little bit of some Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton 21 vibes, as we have seen Azure and Grim go toe-to-toe every single race in some capacity. Granted, Azure definitely holding the pace advantage throughout the season. That is going to remain irrelevant coming into this final sector for Vossi, who is looking on a big improvement. So far, we were about 2/10 up coming into that final sector, and coming out of that technical third sector looked like quite a good lap, and it is an improvement for Vossi, who does join that top pace group, but only a 142.4, which is going to place them 2.5 tenths short of Grim Lilith. And that is going to be maybe the omen of the race, that this Mercedes possibly looking to take the challenge for that race win.
Yes, indeed. We also see the 765 of Azure Code still able to get within the same 10th of the Mercedes here, only 700s off from the lead time here. So despite the struggles that Azure has been very vocal about this week here, he may still have that decent shot here of having a good fight with the Mercedes of Grim Lilith here, and able to get that win here possibly. And we also see Auras Volpe still in that top 3 fight as well, with a very impressive 42.3. None of the drivers were quite able to break into that 41 barrier here, but some very good driving from our silver top driver here on a very good run here. We also have a confirmation of Snowy able to get the AM pole position here. Not quite able to get into that overall top 10 position here, but still a very good run here. Over a second, separating him from the second AM driver of Z-Source here. So it's going to be quite an interesting race for Snowy for sure.
Pro driver. Oh, I'm sorry. It's windy here today. A little bit dusty. It's, you know, those forest fires in Canada might have started back up again. So they're just bleeding down into the northern United States. Couldn't really control myself, but it's, you know, it's been quite a strong second stage of the season for Snowy, who's really shown that Aston Martin to pick up pace quite a bit as we take a look at our overall standings. Of course, Azure Goat leading the standings with Grimloaf just shortly behind. Taking a look down the grid as well, look how tight this mid pack is. And almost all these drivers separated by 1, 2, 3 points just to the next driver in class. I mean, we've seen battles in every single championship and every single class. So there's certainly battles up and down the grid to be looking for. Silver class, of course, being led by Newt, but look at that, 1 point behind is Vossi. That's that class battle that we talked about, as both of those drivers been able to take a win in each of their respective races in their class. Of course, going down the order, we have 11 drivers so far having competed in that silver championship, looking to vie for that silver crown title. And then AM championship, probably our most dominated championship so far, headed by Lup, who's been Mr. Consistent, followed up by Snowy, who's taken that race win in the previous round, trying to follow up 5 points adrift. But with 4 rounds in the championship, 4 races to go, including us here today, that gap is very, very quickly going to change, and one result is all as it takes to turn this championship on its head for any of our drivers, let alone our championship leaders.
Indeed, and we are still going to have some drop rounds here on our championship here. So Lop is not joining us here for our Misano round here, but with only the 5 best results of the season here counting towards your opponent's standings here, it's not going to be affecting his championship results too much here. And now we are getting ready for our first set up laps here around. So let's go head back on our main screen here as we get ready for a look around our grid here.
Yeah, of course.
Yep, go ahead.
We, of course, leading our pack, we talked about our new pole sitter in GT4, Grim Lilith in the 115 with the Soul Seal Mercedes-Benz. I believe they've taken a different livery every single event here, different of in-game livery, that is the word, followed by the enthusiastic livery of Azure Goat. And not sure I would use the same language, but we'll follow suit through to the meme stickers of the 406 Janetta, piloted by Oraz Volpez, Vossi Tiger in the new TIG Gang Racing Porsche, the number 15, lining up in P4. Believe their best qualifying so far since joining TGR. Believe last week they were P5, P6. Well, P5 belonging to Newt, sitting in the 272 McLaren, and then followed alongside by the home hero Porsche driver of Wuschel. Maybe not home to Italy, but you might as well be a factory driver at this point, driving the number 69, piloting the second row the second column in row 3. Blade Wolf sitting and looking pretty in the 142, P8 or P7, followed up by P8 of the KTM of Saber Kitsune, the 523, the only KTM on the grid. This looking like one of the stronger tracks for the KTM, so could be one of the drivers to watch later on in the race. Driver that's going to be struggling during the race, not to any fault of their own, but just due to the mechanics of the car. The Maserati here, the 777 of S-Spirit. Really look forward to seeing how they're going to handle the late stages of this race with tire wear. And they're going to be followed alongside by the 808 of MNU_ with that bright lilac colored Porsche. I do approve of the colors. Beautiful car, by the way, as they're going to be followed up by the second Porsche in line of Lunatic, P8 or P11 in the number 8 car there. Bright lime green, can't miss them on track. Followed by the native, the British Racing Green 919 of Snowdog, taking that AM class pole position, as we talked about before. Lining up in 13th overall, the first Chevy that we've seen of the 38, piloted by Dipping Sauce. And they're going to be followed alongside by Zezor's P14. That's going to be filling out row 7 in that BMW M4. Jumping over to Wolf and Foxdale, filling out the first column in that 8th row. The 529 looking pretty with that largemouth opening, looking to maybe eat up a few positions, followed by the 911 taking up that second slot in row 8. They're going to be followed behind by, I forgot about the Bepsis KTM car. How dare I? Piloted by Czar, down all the way with the disappointing P17 for our silver driver, and 96 piloted by Jinfulf. Believe the final Camaro in line. Yes, they will be. And they're going to be all chased by this driver that I don't think I can see still. You might have some graphic settings messed up, but Cohen, according to my timing sheet, taking up P19, followed, of course, by our incumbent safety car driver, Suzuka, making their debut in that safety car position.
Yes, we might even call it something called like I remember there was a particular song that he probably would appreciate hearing. It was something like "Safety Shark, do 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 do, Safety Shark, do 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 do."
Oh no, I almost muted myself so quickly. I still might do that just to drown out the abhorrent screaming that is going on inside of me right now because I wanted to forget that. And unfortunately now it is back again for probably about the next 45 minutes of this race. But we're going to see each of these drivers, a little bit of bobbing and a little bit of weaving, trying to get some heat in those tires, trying to get those surface times going up. Of course, you have Grimlow pulling the Kimi Raikkonen strat of not taking any weaving at all. Of course, probably just dragging brakes, building that brake temperature to really radiate into the external part of the tire, into the sidewall, and just letting the brakes do the work. So you see, yeah, the brake lights illuminated onto that Mercedes, just pulling some heat into the wheel wells there. That's going to be just getting a little bit more grip on the start here. Some of those other drivers might be cooking the surface temps rather than building that sidewall temperature.
Yeah, we're going to be watching with great interest going up into the final sector here on Misano track here. It's going to be a very cold track here. The sun may be out here, but that sun is providing no warmth to these drivers here, with air temperatures only at 18 degrees and a track temperature at 20 degrees. So combined with the very severe tire degradation this track tends to bring to these tires here, we're going to be seeing quite a lot of oversteer sliding moments here from our drivers here as they're getting ready for final sector and getting ready to go 2 by 2 for the start of the race.
Yeah, 2 by 2. Well, remember that there are 2 KTMs, and I promise I did not forget that at any point. But of course, we're going to be rolling through the final 2 corners. I mean, the slowest you're going to see these 2 corners, and the slowest you're going to see these cars all race as we tip on down, all the way down to 50 kilometers an hour. Pit lane speed, basically, rolling through to pick up this pack as we see both of our drivers pumping those brakes, just trying to get a little bit of extra heat up as we finally tip ourselves into that final corner. Your pole sitter Grim Lilith in that 115 finally going to be able to look up and see the 5 red lights led right in front of them as we get ready to drive ourselves into race number 3. Let's up to that flag stand and getting ready to launch those cars, and it is a green flag. It looks like possibly a bad start from the Mercedes. This could be Azure leading into 1, but Grim with a big dive on the inside, taking a lot of curb, but pinching Azure all the way to the inside, having to take a little bit of evasive action and back out of there. We could be under threat now from Orez as Vossi moving up to P3, with Orez taking a bad line and not being able to get the exit that they want as we head into 4, set up for 5, and Newt trying to take the outside. The McLaren maybe able to hold the inside to 6, but having to back out. That Janetta just able to nose ahead just enough as they try to look to recover some momentum, but Wushel maybe looking to possibly put a challenge down as we run into 8. And Newt having to take this wide line. The McLaren we talked about struggling with a little bit understeer coming in here, and it looks like they might have been able to hold it around, unable to the eyes on where Wushel may be as they have to back out on the outside of 9-10, looking for possibly an undercut, trying to get traction as Newt's a little bit deep into the corner, followed through by Saber, so it's going to be a drag race through 11, 12, and 13. The double, triple right-hander getting ready to throw up some chaos. The McLaren just pulling a little bit ahead with that engine, but the Porsche having the inside line, getting a little bit of an advantage as they go hard on the brakes down into 13. The McLaren able to pull ahead, and finally things have settled down at the front of our pack.
As we do see a bit of a slide here coming up from Bossy, we have to compromise at the line, and with Oras running up right up alongside and trying to have a bit of a peak going up into 14 and 15, not quite able to capitalize on that, but pounding on the ass of that Porsche right here with the McLaren behind, just barely avoiding the contact with the Janetta ahead here, with a really strong fight happening between the P3 down into P7 cars here, with Adler and Grim just saying thank you very much. I'm going to be heading off into the next time zone here with how big of a gap they've been able to pull.
Yeah, absolutely. So this looks like it could be a very big gate as we take a look. I mean, it's already 2.2 seconds from Vossi to Azure and Grim Lilith. So if we do have a little bit of a train warming up here already on the second lap as Vossi's still trying to get that Porsche really working as the KTM very wide in the background there, followed by wide by Snowy and the 919 Aston Martin back there. It's going to be still line of stern for all of our drivers here. No drama aside from maybe some track limits warnings coming in for some of our drivers here, but all one by one into Misano Circuit, and I can only imagine these drivers now getting ready to finally settle in. These tire temps starting to maybe build up to where they want to be. New with a bad run in the mid corner of turn 10 there. I think the Porsche of Wuschel trying to get a move in, but was not able to get a nose in, then compromising their run. Fortunately, the KTM behind them does not have the power to really match, so this is going to be a hard-fought race as we see both of the cars in the tail end of the pack starting to really pack up to the rear end of this train. The KTM really showing how much it excels in that slow speed section, just pulling right up to the rear end of the 69 and starting to put that pressure on, but every single time they close up, you get ready to go to the straightaway and just watch this Porsche pull away from the KTM, which carries the mid-corner speed but just doesn't have the drive to fight it on exit.
Yeah, you also see some of our drivers going off for a very early pit stop. We actually see the 777 of F-Speed who had already went to the pit stop. We also see Blade move right behind this finding pack into the pit as well, and up and go for a rather early pit stop here. As a bit of a reminder, the average pit time here for our Misano, it's going to be a very long pit lane, so it's going to be at least 38 seconds to go for a minimum fuel for a splash and dash here. So there might be quite some interesting strategy here we see from our driver as they try to get the best opportunity to get some strategy. As we see a bit of a yellow flag happening in the background, not quite sure what happened. As we see somebody going wide, let's see if we can see on the replay what exactly happened over there.
I believe Caesar's maybe having a little bit of a moment. This BMW not known for its cornering. It is a very much of a top speed demon, but we roll ourselves through turns 3 and then run down to 4. We see trying to catch up to the tail end of this pack of Porsches, no less. So we roll through 4. Looks like just maybe a little bit squirrely in the 5. But, oh, actually an accident ahead with, I believe, the 38, the 8, and who else was that? I think that was Wanab as well in, I believe, the 911 Porsche. All caught up in an incident there in turn 5. Did not get an idea of what may have happened there to cause that, though.
It seems like there was some kind of incident between the Porsches of Lunatic and Huanwi that caused an initial incident. Sadly, we were not able to catch that on our cameras here, but unfortunate for them, but hopefully they'll be able to get a bit of a rise up here. But for somebody who I want to be putting some highlight into would be the car 919 of Snowy, who is currently up 4 positions from as we see them going into the pit lane here, as they had a pretty good run here, but we'll come back to them later. We also see Czar able to really capitalize on those incidents back in the field. They're now up 7 positions on their previous best result here, and quite a good run from that KTM, despite them, I do believe they had not done a single lap of practice on this Misano track until today.
Yeah, well, this is going to be a very interesting race as the commentators are going to have to work. And by commentators, I mean us, because all of our drivers are pitting at the start of the race. Of course, they're throwing strategy into it. What else? Of course, makes it very exciting for the rest of us. But Czar looking up in a provisional P9 right now, but coming through the pit cycle. Be very, very interested to see where that cycles out with some of our drivers coming out into clean air. Well, a driver not benefiting from clean air, though. The 406 of Oraz Volpez really chasing down and hounding the rear end of Vossi here. This is our fight for the silver class lead, so this may be for an overall podium as Vossi's going a little bit wide, but it's also a little bit more intense for the silver championship battle. That Ginetta not really able to stretch its legs, but we're coming into its favorite sector of the track. So we tip into 11, and then we set up into 12. That Porsche maybe not going to like the brakes as much as the Ginetta here, which really excels with that trail brake. As we set up into 14, the Porsche having to dive in early. Ginetta setting up maybe for a later apex to slingshot out of the corner, but the Porsche just able to put the traction down and use all of the power in the back end of that Cayman. And through 15, the momentum looks like it's going to swing back in favor of the Porsche. Ginetta just trying to carry everything that they can to try to pull to the rear end of this number 15.
We also see back here a fight between Wusu and Newt back here, who are also in a really tight fight between them, currently only 5 points between them. And Wusu not being able to quite capitalize on that early bit of chaos here, still holding on their own position here, but it's going to be quite a fight for them to be able to catch up on the McLaren ahead here with the really big straight line speed of the McLaren, starting out like a rocket on that big section here. So we're just going to be able to need to get a really good run on one of these corners here to be able to hit the McLaren ahead for an overtake.
Yeah, as we roll through onto the back straight, but once again, look at that straight line speed of the McLaren, just absolutely pulling on the Porsche. I mean, you have to imagine, you feel so defeated in the car, in the cockpit, when you see a car pull that much on the straightaway, but look how much the Porsche gains back on the straightaway immediately after, not on the straightaway, under the brakes, as that Porsche is just so much more confident. The front end just pulling itself into the corner, able to put the power down a little bit better. It just doesn't have the straight line advantage that McLaren has been benefiting from all season.
Yes, indeed. We are also watching our Aras Volpes driver here, still trying to hound on the rear of that second Porsche Cayman car, with quite an actual inverse positioning here between the front Porsche and the back Porsche, with now the Ginetta in a bit of a disadvantage in these main straights here, with the Porsche having the better engine to pull away on these straights here. But we see Aras just clawing that, getting right up on the bumper of the Cayman here, just edging for every single possibility to overtake anywhere here possible. But Vossi still holding on a very strong defense here, keeping that position here. Up ahead here, we see Grimliv now with a whopping 3-second gap to Azure Good behind here. So Grimliv is going to be having quite some smooth sailing ahead here with that strong Mercedes here.
Yeah, the Mercedes really starting to open up that gap, and I believe, the Mercedes known for chewing through its tires a little bit. Of course, Grim Lilith, our resident controller pro, is just absolutely blitzing the lap times and the timing sheets right now. Is their best lap currently 7/10 faster than the next fastest car. Can you believe that? And our on controller gapping our two-time race winner in already 3 seconds, and we're only 5 laps into the race. That's almost a second a lap every single lap.
Yeah, you just have to give him a big round of applause for what he can do with that, with a controller, with triggers and two sticks instead of a proper wheel and proper pedals. I need to see what kind of stuff he's putting on here to get that kind of performance. As we see in the background, that's going to be Lars once again getting really close onto the rear bumper of that Porsche. With the same with the with that McLaren ahead. But again, it's going to be those straight line speeds of the Porsche and then the McLaren who are able to just pull it away and not able to get that move going on here, with Ucho, I think, getting quite close here, going up into turn 14, turn 13, getting up really close, seeing if they can make a bit of a peek into 14. Deep on those brakes, but just not able to find that space. They almost touching the bumper of that Honda driver up ahead here.
Yeah, and that Porsche looks very strong under the brakes, but there's just a McLaren-sized roadblock in the way. The nowhere you can really go is a lot of Misano leads to single line racing until you're able to pull alongside. There's not a lot of places where you can just force your car alongside, but once you are alongside, there does seem to be a lot of equal opportunity corners where one car doesn't necessarily have an advantage over the other. Creates good battles when they start, but that's the hardest part on track, is to just pull yourself alongside. But the Porsche looking for a move coming into 4. Newt thinking better, or Newt knowing better of it, just to hold that inside. But the Porsche of Wuschel able to get to the inside of 5, but having to take the long way around of 6, taking a lot of curb. But is the momentum held as we run down the quick, which I still don't think is a corner? Well, we'd have to ignore that coming into a Wuschel using all of the curb and then some. As rolling around the outside, we talk about the equal opportunity corners. Well, Wuschel having to benefit from all of it, but now we're going to see the pace of that McLaren, the engine power, pull it away, and Sabre benefiting from this the most as they just pull all the way to the inside. And once again, the McLaren needing to hold around the outside, but unable to stick it, as now Wuschel's finally able to get in front. But once again, the McLaren, we've seen that engine power advantage now taking to the inside as we tip into 11 side by side. Once again, the Porsche is going to have to make a very high commitment move to try to make this stick, but no, the McLaren immediately up, but the Porsche back to the inside. Wuschel just taking the inside line, holding it down, and the 14 Sabre looking for a line as well, but Newt trying to shove it close. As we run to 15, Newt's able to find a gap once again. Wuschel's trying to shut the door, but Newt able to carry the momentum, and Sabre now looking to benefit from this battle. Through 16, Newt once again able to get inside, and the momentum of the McLaren finally able to draw away, as Sabre now looking to try to benefit once more as we roll into one. A look to the inside of Wuschel, but is the space going to be there? Wuschel able to keep it in front. Sabre backs out, and yet somehow after all of that, nothing changes at all.
Don't forget to have a breather at some point, class, but don't run out of breath. Oh, that was quite a fight to witness here, and somehow they are all holding on their own position here so far, but with that big fight Newton had, that gave the positions all the way up, clawed up distance to Sabre here. Now back in that fight to P5 here, so it's going to be a very close fight here with Sabre probably not quite as fast as the Porsche and the McLaren here, but the more they fight here, the more opportunities Sabre's going to be having to hopefully get a move here and get that overtake done.
Absolutely. I mean, you can only imagine that it looks like that Porsche is able to carry so much more pace. Well, once again, the Ginetta also looks like able to carry so much more pace than the Porsche directly in front of them. As Vossi seeming to kind of head this pack here, is Wolfen looking for the inside of turn 8, and that looks like Zizer's going to cede that position. The Camaro able to put down the power, and I believe is going to snake that move stick. Yes, it does look like the BMW will not have a run. So one position up more for Wolfen, who's now sitting in a provisional P1 in the AMP class, but I do believe that's still going to hold them in about P2, as Snowy is the lead driver once you take into account the fact that they have made that pit stop so far.
Yes, indeed. We have our quite long pit cycle here of 38 and plus seconds here with that minimum smashing dash pit stop here. So looking at the gap so far, the gap is way less than 38 seconds. As we see, Wolfen going really wide into that turn here, giving that opening again for Zizer to have a move up on the inside here, going up into turn 14, side by side, going up into turn 14 and 15. With Zizer again backing out and not able to get that move to stick.
Yeah, well, Wolfen definitely fighting to try to hold that position, currently holding that AM race lead, but I do believe you said about 38 seconds of delta for that pit lane. They're holding the lead on Snowy by about 25, so currently I do believe this is going to be still quite the gap to overcome for Wolfen, but as the drivers around them have pit, they're going to be sitting in clean air, and Wuschel once again trying to use that slipstream to pull all the ways up to the McLaren. As we tip into 8, you can see how much later that Porsche just turns in. The McLaren's refusing to get its nose into the corner, having to just take so much more mid-corner, and the Porsche just able to dart in very, very late, very agile car, hard under the brakes, and just tip, point, and go. Plant that power down. Really, that McLaren just surviving off of its engine power rating.
Yes, and despite all of those attempts here, it's just going to be that straight line speed of the McLaren just able to pull that gap here, going up into this main back straight here with that. You see, just it's going to be from 1 place to 2 tenths, even 3 tenths out as we look at the braking zone here, just desperate to try to put any kind of space here, get a tiny bit of space here on the inside of trying to get that move to stick here. But all this time here, Xavier's just going to be watching here in the background, just waiting for any mistake to happen. There was already contact between, a little bit of a contact between Wuschel and Sabre at one point going up into turn 1 and turn 2 here. So if Wuschel's going to be on the McLaren head, there may be a bit of a contact here, and it's going to be giving the opportunity for Sabre to get an overtake.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it before. Sabre not afraid to stick their nose in and make themselves known on the circuit. Whether or not you're in a battle or not, they still are looking to move themselves up the grid order. And while that KTM might be lacking a little bit of pace, they certainly are no stranger to battle. And we've seen how hard it is for these cars to get past each other so far. That KTM, even with the power deficit, may be able to carry enough momentum to make it stick in front of these cars if they are able to get ahead and really kind of put a spanner in the works for this battle for Q5.
Yes, indeed. Well, we are seeing our drivers are settling into their gap, so with the gap at the front maintaining at about 3.3, 3.5 seconds here, so they're probably just easing back on that Mercedes with how commanding a lead they've been able to get here so far. And we do see Rossi here being able to close a little bit on as you go ahead, about 1.5 seconds from the McLaren driver here, but it doesn't seem like they're making much progress here watching their previous laps here. It's going to be about equal lap times between Azure and Rossi, but The Grimlin's car had a 43.1 on their last lap time, so they are still just disappearing off into the front and putting on a very commanding performance so far.
Yeah, of course. And right now, Grim showing no signs of slowing down. Maybe a tire wear starting to kick in on that Mercedes, as their advantage is only 0.3 as opposed to 0.7, but that gap still swinging in the favor of the 3-pointed star of that 115. We still have Oraz Volpez sitting less than a second behind, hounding the rear end of Vossi. Just waiting for maybe those tires to fall off in the Porsche. The car that is a little bit nicer on its tires than the rest of the grid, but the Ginetta is, I believe, by far the easiest car on its tires, being one of the lightest cars on the grid, only, I believe, heavier than the KTM, who we see piloted by Czar, and, of course, Sabre, who we saw in that battle earlier in the race. But jumping down our grid, we see the Aston Martin Maserati battle into turn 16. A big dive coming in from Blade Wolf, but that Maserati looking to stretch its legs. And once again, we see the power really able to benefit on some of these cars, but Blade with probably the preferred line, able to go deeper under the brakes with the benefit of that ABS and just take away the inside line into turn 2, Cohen having to cede that position. And now, starting to fall, we see the two Maseratis line astern in P11 and 12.
Yes, we also see, still at the front, we had Saber Kitsune opting to bow out of this fight ahead and going to the pits here, so he's hoping probably to get a bit of an undercut going up on these two fighting cars ahead here in order to get a bit of advantage here, but we're going to be watching that with interest, with Rushul still and Newt both putting in at roughly 43.6, 43.7 times here, so as we see Saber Kitsune at the back here just fresh off the pit side, so we're going to be seeing if they are able to get any faster lap times than these two fighting drivers here and maybe get that undercut finally done here. A very interesting strategy battle here we're seeing for sure.
Yeah, without a doubt, especially if these two cars start holding each other up, but Janetta's tired of being held up by P3, and Oraz is looking to the outside. We saw this move work just a lap ago with Blade, as the Porsche tucking itself in, but going maybe a little bit wide. The Janetta just trying to set up for the over-under, but it looks like Vossi able to put the power back down and keep themselves in front for the run all the ways down to turn 4. And once again, the 406 just unable to make something happen, but maybe the over-under into the brakes in 4. That Janetta is just looking so much more nimble and compliant throughout this circuit, and Vossi having to wrestle the car very, very wide as we tip through 6. And then down the straight, the kink of 7 one more time into 8. It looks like maybe a move possible for Oraz here, really filling up the rear view mirror of Vossi and trying to put that power down. Both cars running all the way to the absolute limit of the track limits. But once again, Porsche able to open up that gap on corner exit and just really use that horsepower to its advantage.
Yes, indeed. We are watching all up on the final half of our circuit race here. Most of our drivers are already up the code for a very early pit stop instead of a late pit stop here. Quite unusual from what we saw on our previous races here with going to be the top 7 all who have yet to pit, with also Cohen currently in P10 who have not yet taken a pit stop here. But looking at our gaps so far here, there's not a lot happening, so with how difficult it is to get these overtakes done on this track here, this might be a battle of wits and strategy as we see a lap car here crowding out and making way for these cars ahead here. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if there's going to be a possibility for undercuts with these early pit stoppers here, hoping to get that clean air and get the jump on these late pit stoppers.
I do believe that was the 96 at Jim Full of having to bow out and feed away to the leaders, but whereas in Vossi completely unfazed as they have a battle to continue to be focused on, but whereas getting a little bit of understeer, really washing wide in turn 2 is going to lose them a bit of time through 3, and Vossi just finally getting a little bit of air, a little bit of a breather to pull themselves back, but the gap's closing down on some other cars as well through our mid-pack. I do reckon that this race still has quite a bit to give as we see the two Maseratis taking it into turn 15. Cohen, and it's going to be stuck on the inside, pinned down by F-Spirit. The 777 running around the outside and then leading into 16, making that move stick. I believe maybe we're looking at some tire wear issues that we foreshadowed from coming in from those Italian machines, not having any of the benefit from those assists, and naturally looking at a little bit more degradation throughout the later phases of this race.
Yes, indeed. It's going to be a very demanding race for our Maserati drivers here, trying to get their tires into the right window here. But we also see Wushu, who has now taken the pit stop, with Blade Hoof ahead, who has also taken the own pit stop, inching a bit closer to that Aston Martin ahead here. And looking at the previous lap time so far, Blade Hoof with a 44 flat here. We did see Wushu ahead being able to get 43s, low 43s on their runs here. So you can see that gap slowly closing in here, so we might see some moves here, but how hard this to overtake on this track here. But also could see this working well for Newt and Saber Kitsune here, as Wushu potentially get stuck in traffic trying to overtake this Aston Martin ahead.
And we talked about the possible strategy. Well, this is a little bit of a blinder from Blade, who pitted pretty much right at the start of the race, and I do believe is just going to benefit from that battle that was between Wushel and Newt. Just bleeding so much lap time. Maybe not putting in the fastest lap times every lap. Only they've been able to get themselves in front just due to the other cars not being able to sight them, honestly. One of the biggest advantages of taking that early pit is the other cars don't know who's around them, and you can just run your race. Wherever you come out, and anyone battling in the early phase of the race is naturally going to just lose out to you, no matter if they have better pace or not. So this is really going to close up for Wushel. I imagine this gap's going to close, but Blade Wolf not going to see this position easily.
Exactly here. We now also saw up ahead of the grid here, Auras Volpes finally bowing out of that fight between him and Voski, and starting up right behind. That's going to be the fellow KTM driver of Zar here, right ahead them. And when you get that down here, I do believe Zar has not yet taken the pit stop either, so they're going to be suffering from quite some worn out tires here. With obviously Auras Volpes also is going to be having those same worn out tires as the KTM ahead here. But watching the previous lap times here, Zar is still being quite slow here, so depending if Auras is not being able to get past this KTM quick here, this might work well for Vossi here, as we just discussed here, with Vossi currently now in clean air with nobody in front or behind to impede on him. So we're going to be watching. It's going to be definitely a battle of strategy here with all these drivers here, trying to get the best optimum time for their pit stops here, as we do see also Wushu getting up now really close into the rear bumper of Blade. We're looking for a move going up into turn 10, getting right alongside, but still not quite yet on the position for move here, but she's definitely getting close.
Yeah, the rear wing of Blade Wolf is about to be looted because Wushel is all the ways up underneath the rear end of that Aston Martin. Well, it looks like Boraz trying to make a move. Zar going a little bit deep in the brakes. And Janetta trying to make a benefit from that KTM mistake, but KTM very, very strong in the mid-corner, able to really roll that momentum through. But the 406, knowing they need to make this move, unfortunately, or well, fortunately for them, they don't have to make that move. Zar taking to the pits on this first lap that they were cut, or as maybe losing a couple tenths of time. But nothing major in the grand scheme of things, as we see Saber now taking the fight to the 404 Maserati of Cohen, and another look to the inside of 16. It looks like Saber able to nicely get that car in front, carry that momentum out, and yeah, that's going to be a easy position done for the 523.
Yeah, we're starting to see our top drivers also getting into the pit stops here. It's going to be quite very familiar strategy here, opting to pit at the very dying minutes of the race in every single race so far here. So he's probably hoping to keep it on the track here, just hoping to avoid keeping it in clean air for as late as possible and just go for a very late Alex Albon-like strategy of like pitting at the very last minute here. We're going to be watching to see if he's able to make a countdown. So watching at his gap currently, the next AM driver behind us is going to be the car number 919 of Snowy, who's currently about 20 seconds behind here. So whenever Kuhn is going to be taking that pit stop, I do believe with the gap we have, he's going to be starting somewhere between, I would say, one and moving with what the gap is sticking out so far, as we see them go very wide on that turn and getting their lap invalidated.
Yeah, and of course, Snowy also leading by about 10 seconds in their class as well. So Snowy putting up a very, very nice class lead. Of course, that being provisionally, once you take into account the fact that Cohen will have to pit and likely won't be coming out in the lead here with the current pit stop delta. While Snowy looking to be putting on a very, very strong and well put together race, leading that AM class. Dropped to P13 overall so far, but still a couple drivers that need to come down, and then we'll be able to see where things have properly sorted out. But of course, drivers aren't obligated to do that for the next 17 minutes, as that pit window is still open until 2 minutes left to go in this event, and some of those drivers are going to take that all the ways to the end.
Yeah, we also see our Porsche driver of Musho here still trying to get past on the Playboy right here. With Lucy actually, Playboy has been able to pick up their pace a bit more here. Now both drivers running in the below 43 here, so this might still work well for Musho if Musho can get that toe here from Playboy on these mid-sector corners and not still losing too much time on her, because she is still with that fight to the top of the grid with Oras, Lopez, Newt, and Vossi with, I do believe that's first. Yeah, that Oras has already taken on their own pit stop, but it's still going to be Newt, Vossi, Azure, and Grim who have yet to take the pit stop from the top over here. And looking at the gaps so far, it would be Mushu able to inherit the lead, at least from Newt looking at the gaps so far. It's going to be a bit of a close fight here, but it's going to be all in how well Newt can be able to get that run here on clean air and get a good pit stop.
Yeah, and speaking of strategy, we just had one of our lead cars come in, the 765, the enthusiastic McLaren coming in for their pit stop. So we're going to see where this spits them out. Remember, Azure only ahead by a second or two ahead of the battle from Oraz and Vossi. And of course, it looks like Oraz may have been able to close that gap a little bit underneath the pit cycle. Well, as we run down back out of pit lane, we're going to see right where this car comes out. Remember, P2 overall. And then we expect them to stay somewhere similar to P2 as we run out on the track. But there's no guarantee that they're going to hold on to it, as we see the 406 coming in. This pit lane held very, very late from your pit limiter. But yeah, there's going to be a couple seconds ahead of them in the 406. About 5 seconds according to our timing screen. So that gap opened up quite a bit from Oraz, quite a bit from Vossi, battling each other, but it's definitely not all over. A single mistake and that could come down. And of course, our Azure is going to have to get back into the rhythm to try to make this happen. So we see Wushel now starting to make a challenge down onto the intro.
And we see them now going side by side up into the turn 7 turning complex here with getting up right on one side, looking for maybe a bit of a peak here, going up 2 by 2. Wushel with a big inside dive here, and the rather simple pick, as we do see her going really wide there, almost getting a tracking validation here, but we to finally get that move to stick here, and I'm hoping to just benefit from that clean air and escape from Blade and get back into that fight with Oraz and Fossi ahead here.
Yeah, of course, and you see that Bushel's gonna start making a run as hard as they can. We've seen the pace coming out of this number 69, but we've also seen the pace coming out of Oraz. So whether or not they catch them is one thing, but the battle is not gonna be easy if they do get all the ways up there. And regardless, I don't think Playwolf's gonna be playing very nice there, as we see that 142 just trying to hang on tight. Gap maybe starting to creep open a little bit, but that 142 not going to give up that position so easily, especially against a long-term driver like Wushel. Long list of battles between these two members of Simufur, and of course another one can be added to the list after this weekend here at Misano. But I think Wushel only looking forward right now. Gap 7 seconds right now to Oraz and Azure, but I don't think that's an insurmountable gap right now.
I mean, looking at the latest lap time so far, Wushel with a 44.4 and Oraz with a 43.7, but Wushel was still impeded slightly by a Blade move behind, so we're going to be watching them closely how their lap times are going to be going for these final 50 minutes of the track, if they are able to catch up onto Oraz ahead here and get a move going on here. We also see at the back, that was actually an overtake between Zizros and Jinfu that we just missed. Let's see if we can see that on the replay here real quick. Going up around here, we do Samia going up. I do believe that is gonna be, not quite sure where we are. Actually, we are in the middle sector going up into turn 7, turn 8, with Lisa going up with a dive into turn 8 with a very classical just dive bomb overtake, and able to get an easy pass on the Camaro.
Yeah, even if the Camaro was able to get inside and put that momentum down, looks like these are very well put together slide pass and just stopping it on the nose of where Jinfu would have wanted to place that car. So well managed from our number 6 BMW, the only BMW on the grid, aside from our lovely safety car. But Vossi now inheriting the race lead, as Grim Lilith has finally made their pit stop with only 12 minutes left in that pit window. Vossi looking to really try to stretch out this long game and make something happen but this could be costing them. Their tires, of course, possibly overheating by this point, and that pit cycle has been allowing drivers to cool those tires down. Now, that 17, 18 track and air temperature or air and track temperature, that isn't the most major issue in the world, but you can only imagine any of these drivers that might have gotten tire pressures wrong or anything like that are gonna be trying to just keep those things alive, and that could have even been a factor for why some of our drivers pitted immediately.
Indeed, and looking at the gap so far here, it's almost a 38-second exact gap to Aura's Whoppers currently running in P5 here, so Vossi not quite able to get a gap here, and Aura's neither able to close the gap here on the car ahead here, so it's going to be all going down into how well Vossi is going to be able to get this very likely splash and dash pit stop here and able to still keep that lead here, and if he can do that correctly, he might just barely get ahead of Marcel, but it's certainly going to be a very interesting battle when he eventually goes into the pits here.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be the gap. It's hard to see, if I'm truthfully honest, but the gap right now looking to Oraz, if I had to do the math in my head, I believe might be about a second in favor of Oraz, maybe only half a second in favor. I'm really, really interested to see when this 15 comes into the pit, because they are just trading lap times currently out on the circuit, and currently, whereas just his most recent lap by, he's lost out 2/10. But overall, it looks like Oraz might be able to get the jump on them with just the raw pace inside of that Janetta.
Yeah, indeed. We also see it's going to be only Vossi, Newt, and Cohen who have yet to take a pit stop on these final 12 minutes of the race here. And looking up on our AM driver, they are still quite well within the pit stop delta of Snowy here, so he's not going to be able to keep that lead here after pit stops here. But further down the grid, we see quite a substantial gap between Juan V and Wolfen Fox still, so it's going to be probably a potential podium finish for Cohen as well here. They had a really good run last time in Imola, able to get I do believe it was a very strong podium finish there as well, so we might see them able to get on the podium steps again here in our race here, as we don't see hardly any balance going at the moment here, but it's going to be certainly interesting to see once the final cars are going to be getting into the pit stop cycles here, and maybe we'll see some more fighting then.
Yeah, of course, only looking for those pit stops from the cars you mentioned, Vossi, and then this driver right here, Newt in P2, looking for their pit stop. Cohen needing their pit stop as well. But after that, no car is obligated to serve another pit stop for the rest of this race, minus any kind of penalties or anything that you might get picked up from anyone. But 272 looking like they might be losing a little bit here, but Grim Lilith, or sorry, not Grim Lilith, our other leader of this race, Vossi, coming in for their pit finally. We're going to see where they cycle on out here, because it looks like the 272, I believe, has obligated to not come to the pit stop, so they're going to run this McLaren all the way out to the end of the race. But coming in from P1 to P2, looks like we're going to be dropping down to P3, but this is where the race begins. So the line right there is not the end of the pit speed limiter, and we're taking a look at Oraz here for the blend, but they have to go down all the ways down that long path that we followed Azure on last time in the pits, and Oraz is going to be pushing to try to close that gap as much as possible, and they're going to have the momentum as we rejoin the track. So the blend is coming up here, and is it going to be carried by the Janetta? It looks like the Porsche maybe just barely able to get in front, and yes, it is able to stick, and the gap is almost identical to when we left it some 10 laps ago.
Yes, it's going to be quite reawakened between these two drivers here. Vossi still able to hold on to that lead here. We also see at the back it's going to be Cohen just losing another position, the dipping side of the back here, but we're going to be having to turn back to Oraz Volpes and Vossi ahead here, with Vossi now having slightly colder tires here, so not quite as a good run here. So that's going to be giving that advantage for Oraz to just close the gap here, getting up on the bumper of that Porsche ahead here, and just hoping to maybe finally get that move done here and get past the Porsche ahead.
Yeah, well, that Porsche, we've again seen how strong its power band is. Well, it's going a little bit wide in the 14, and that's allowed the Janetta sneak around the outside. Sorry, not 14, 10. Once again, the corner's freaking out my head. But this is going to be the inside for Oraz through 11, and it's going to be compensating for that power deficit that the Janetta has. Tipped it into 12. hard on the brakes to 13. Pull that nose in, and it looks like the Ginetta is going to have to back out. The momentum for the Porsche just being carried once more, and maybe a little bit deep under the brakes, but Vossi able to hold that position and sticking in front once more.
Yes, Vossi is still in big trouble here, trying to get the heat back into those tires and hold on this gap here, but still holding on strong for now, with Oras very eager to try to get that move here. They have been running very equal times here, so I don't think there's going to be much chance for overtake here, other than a mistake from Vossi here that would leave the door open for Oras to make a move here. So you also see down, I think, yeah, Kuhn is still yet to take a pit stop, with Newt still ahead here, who's currently, let's see, looking at their delta, they might slot all the way down into P8, perhaps even P9. We see Saber Kitsune 39 seconds from the lead driver here, so we're going to be watching them with great interest when we see Newt eventually get that pit stop cycle finished.
Pit stop cycle is going to be very, very important for our leaders. They come through turn 10, but coming up to turn 8, chasing down that provisional leader at the moment is going to still be our battle. It's raged on all race, going a little bit wide as the Porsche once again. The Ginetta just straightening out that car a little bit earlier, putting down that power a little bit better, but once again, getting let down on the straightaways. So we go deep into 10, and once again, just straight on the power. Very, very early for the Ginetta, but just not able to get the drive out. Every single lap, every single corner, it feels like they struggle to make it, but Zar with a big spin coming in. I believe this is turn 2, maybe a little bit too much curb. Let's take a look.
Yeah, we see them going up into the turn 1 and turn 2 columns here, probably very committed in that turn, but they're already sliding with the turn 2, but not quite able to recover that, and unfortunately spinning out and losing a couple positions, with Juan V able to get that move done here. And that's going to be quite unfortunate for our driver here, and hopefully they'll be able to get back on their position and get that move back here. We also see MN underscore coming up on the rear bumper of Snowy, hoping to get some more position. There are Porta not quite as coming around here as they would hope. But we do see at the front here, it's going to be Vossi and Oras still fighting on their own fight here. Oras just within a tenth of that Team Gang Racing car ahead here, but still no move made here, and Vossi holding on strong.
Yeah, a little bit of auto commentary as the TGR commentators cheering on the TGR car, trying to make things happen, but Ora is just unable to find a gap once again, as we have yellow flags once more for Zar, who has taken the tow to the pit. So it's going to possibly be the end of their race, as the pressure is now starting to mount from MNU underscore. Now this is an interclass battle. This is a pro driver chasing down the M leader of Snowy once pit cycles finally cycle out. And this could still get a little bit spicy, though, because while these drivers may be fighting in different classes, they still are battling for overall championship points. So depending how important this position is on track for Snowy, we could see this start to spice up, especially with the Porsches just seem to be so strong in the longer runs here, not really dropping off at all.
Yes, we also see the gap between Snowy and Koi quite insanely caught up here, with Kuhn only a couple of seconds ahead of Snowy now, so they must have been really struggling with those tires now and just losing so much time. So that late pit stop may have not quite worked out for Kuhn's strategy here, with looking at the time delta so far. He might drop all the way down into P18, P19 even, with the deltas being up here, with MNU still trying to look for a gap here somewhere behind Snowy and get that move done here, going up into high braking zone into turn 9, sweeping up into turn 10 with a wide engine, hoping to cut in deep here, but that Aston Martin engine ahead here still holding on strong here and keeping that late. But we do see them going side by side into here, but that is my cameras to see me. I'm not quite able to get that move going here, so it's still going to be P14 for MNU and P13 for Snowy here, trying to get that move done here. And up at the lead here, we still see Newt driving ahead quite calmly, quite slowly here, with Saber Kitsune able to catch a little tiny bit. Currently looking at about 37.8 seconds delta to Newt ahead here, with both running relatively consistent lap times here, with the previous lap times both in the mid 44s here. So it still could be a very interesting fight between the McLaren and KTM drivers here when Newt eventually takes down their pit stop, but they are running out of time, but there's only 2 minutes left.
Yeah, 2 minutes left. Well, it looks like they're probably going to have to make that pit stop this time by, I believe, enough time going to trickle on out. And they need to be in the pit lane by the time that window closes. And it looks like, yes, it's going to be very, very close if they try to push it one more lap, but it's going to be in this lap. So we're going to see how everything's going to cycle out this time by as the McLaren dives to the pits.
With a drive-through penalty, that's going to be putting it all the wide. All that fighting just dashed by that unfortunate drive-through penalty.
Yes, that's going to be very, very big detriment to Sabre because a mightily long pit lane for Misano here. It's just such a low speed. These drivers, it feels like an eternity just trying to leave the pit lane here. You're out of the pit lane, but still have an extremely long pit exit, all at pit road speed. Well, unfortunately, Sabre's going to have to take a second trip down memory lane. It looks like we're going to be waiting another lap for that to happen, but this driver not going to be benefiting from P9 anymore. It's going to be tumbling down the order. Buckets of time, of course, going to be lost because of that incident out on track.
Yeah, we are going to be watching with interest how they're going to be going side by side as with a very strong exit in that pit stop. You're able to get a very commanding lead here. Sabre probably kind of beating himself in the head right now with that unfortunate drive-through penalty. He was complaining a lot about these track limits here, and we did mention that previously in our runs here. And unfortunately, Sabre's hopes of getting up into P8 and beating would have now been dashed by that drive-through penalty. So we're going to have to look further down our grid here. It's going to be MNU still on the rear bumper of Snowy here, trying to look for that opening move here, someone to get that move to stick, with Snowy opting for a very defensive line going up into turn 1, again into turn 2, with MU getting inching it closer and trying to find some kind of gap here, but we're still having a strong move through that P12 position.
Yeah, well, with only a minute and a half left, this is only going to be maybe the second to last lap for Snowy, so this is points that are on the table and points that might not be free, but are points that are definitely up for grabs. We see Snowy starting to chop off the nose of the Porsche as we go down into turn 8. We're going to be going brake on brake, mano y mano, the Aston Martin tight to the inside, while the Porsche trying to make it around the outside, carry that momentum while stuck on the inside. The 919 able to track it out, but now the Porsche has the outside line into 9 and 10, tight on the brakes, going to be able to carry the momentum just a little bit better, and now the Aston Martin needing to put that power down with a very tight line as we run up into 11, 12, and 13. It looks like once again Snowy opting for the inside line and having gotten the better exit. So once again, maybe a little bit too little too late coming from MNU, but with this technical sector coming up, the front end of that Aston Martin is going to be drained a little bit as we see the Porsche trying to gain a lot under the brakes and diving right up to the rear wing, now into 14. Porsche setting up for a wide cutback. The 808 trying to look for a gap, but nothing coming from 14. Down deep into 15, looking for the apex, and a big slide coming from MNU as Snowy just hanging on for dear life to try to keep it in front here with 1 lap to go, 10 seconds remain on the clock. Surely that white flag is going to be waved, is once again a big slide now from Dipping Sauce in the 38, chasing down the number 8 of Lunatic. So we're seeing a couple of these drivers starting to wear out their tires, but one more navigation, one tour of this circuit left to go. But with time running out, our leader coming around that final corner is going to take one more corner. Grim Lilith has usurped the GT4 Menace, the McLaren Master, while through in Misano, the winner is the 115 of Grim Lilith at Misano, and it's going to be followed up by a podium of Azure Goat, blowing this championship battle, I believe, out of the water, as now both of these drivers going to be very close in points. Cohen trying to filter through in 16th, and then, of course, Vossi able to hang on to that P3, having a race-long battle with Orez. Then we see Wushel coming in, filtering in 5th, followed by Blade Wolf in 6th. And then F-Spear with a drift coming out of turn 16, down across the line. Newt just having to file right in behind that Maserati, losing a little bit too much time on the alternate strategy. Jinfolf taking home P18 here, as long as they're able to bring it into the final corner. Yes, they will navigate that quite nicely. But And all of our drivers looking for quite the battle. Lunatic still being put under pressure, as well as MNU putting pressure on Snowy with just 2 corners to go. It looks like MNU might be running out of time, and it might be a last corner dive. Snowy knows better of it, dives hard to the inside. The over-under's there. The Porsche with the run. Could it be a drag race to the line? The Porsche gets in front of Snowy to finally get past the last corner, the last lap into P11 to finally take that spot away from Snowy at the last gasp.
Oh, that was a last lap dream from Emmett. Able to get that final overtake, and that's going to be bringing the end of our final run here with Wolfing Fox in the final car here, crossing the finish line. It's going to be running out our grid at P15. What a spicy finish to that race here. Not quite as much on-track battles here, but with the long pit lane and the tire degradation of the tires here, providing some interesting strategy options for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. The alternate strategy proving to work for some and not for others, and that was all about who made what work at what time. And while unfortunately for some, it just was a little bit too much time lost, as we see Grim with a beautiful drift coming through into that pit lane and closing up that race with style. And quite a strong race from the 115, and actually, to be honest, maybe not the car I was expecting to put on such a performance, but nonetheless, Grim just proving a masterclass of our round 3.
Yes, it's also going to be a very strong result from our Tinka racing driver of Vossi, able to secure that silver championship winter here with Oras Volpes. A couple tenths behind them, not able to get that move down here. So congratulations from our driver here. Also back down in our AM class here, we had Snowy able to get that win in the AM class classification as well. We already have a couple cars disconnected, so I'm not quite able to tell who was it. Yeah, it's going to be 1V. In second place with Wolfing Fox, able to get a podium finish as well in that AM classification here. So well done for all of our drivers here, and quite an interesting race for sure. But next time around, it's going to be a very wet and very technical Brands Hatch. So it's going to be definitely a very tricky race for our Maserati drivers here to see how they can handle that wet track.
Yeah, it's going to be the challenge for sure, but I believe also we have coming up here on Sunday our M2s going out onto a wet Snet circuit, Snetterton circuit, going to be the home of some British touring car classics when we're looking to make another Simufur Classic coming up just in 2 days' time. So stay tuned to our channel, stay tuned to our socials. Please join our Discord channel if you do wish to follow along with us, or even come in and join the races yourself. But till then, my name's Plasma, and I am signing off.